Welcome to Inside the Philippines. I'm your host, and today we've got a story that's going to stick with you. This one comes from Colm, a 55-year-old electrician from Cork, Ireland. Spent 30 years working the high-voltage transmission lines back home. The kind of work where one mistake gets you killed, where you learn to spot danger before it spots you. Colm thought those instincts would protect him here. He thought he was too smart, too experienced, too careful to fall for the scams he'd heard about in the expat pubs. And here's the thing, he was right. Sort of. Because Colm did catch the scam. He did figure it out, but only after he'd already fallen for it. Only after loneliness had short-circuited every safety protocol he'd spent a lifetime building. What happened next changed everything he thought he knew about trust, about connection, about how well you can really know someone when you're desperate to believe. This is his story, in his own words. My name's Colm, and I need to tell you about the year I spent convincing myself I wasn't being played. But before we get to the Philippines, you need to understand what brought me here. Because it wasn't adventure, wasn't some midlife crisis. It was grief, pure and simple, the kind that makes you do things you never thought you'd do. I worked for ESB, that's the Electricity Supply Board back in Ireland, for 30 years. Lineman, high-voltage transmission lines, the big towers you see running across the countryside, carrying enough current to vaporize you if you make one stupid mistake. It was honest work, paid well enough, built a decent pension. The lads I worked with were sound, the kind you'd trust with your life because you literally had to. Siobhan and I lived in Ballincollig, just outside Cork. Small house, nothing fancy. We'd been married 28 years. No drama, no big fights, just a solid partnership. She worked part-time at the chemist. I brought home my wages. We had our daughter Claire, who'd moved to Dublin for university and never came back. We were comfortable. Not rich, but comfortable. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember that specifically because I'd been scheduled for an early shift but got called off due to weather-high winds, too dangerous for the work we had planned. I was having a second cup of tea at the kitchen table when Siobhan stood up to put the kettle on for herself. Just stood up. Normal movement. Then she made this small sound, like a question, and dropped. Massive heart attack. Gone before she hit the floor. The lads at work were brilliant. Gave me all the time I needed, brought around meals, checked in regular. Claire came down from Dublin every weekend for 2 months, trying to help sort the house, the paperwork, all of it. But eventually, everyone has to get back to their own lives, don't they? And I was left alone in that house with Siobhan's things everywhere. Her clothes still in the wardrobe, her books on the nightstand. Every room screaming her absence. I tried. God knows I tried. Went back to work after 3 months, did the routine, came home, made dinner for one, watched television, went to bed. But the silence was unbearable. Not the quiet, I'd always liked quiet. The silence. The specific absence of the sounds she used to make. No kettle at 7:30. No footsteps on the stairs. No rustling of newspaper pages on Sunday morning. A year of that, and I knew I couldn't stay. The house had become a tomb. Ireland had become a tomb. I had my ESB pension sorted, about $1,400 a month, and I'd saved for $30,000 over the years because we'd never been flashy with money. No mortgage left on the house. Claire was settled in Dublin with her own life. There was nothing holding me there except ghosts. That's when I remembered the conversations I'd had with Joel over the years. Filipino lad, brilliant electrician, worked with us for maybe 6 or 7 years. He sent half his wages back to his family in Cebu every month. Wife, 3 kids, his mother, 2 sisters. I used to ask him about it sometimes during lunch breaks. He'd show me photos on his phone, talk about Cebu, about the beaches, the weather, how far a euro goes there. Always said if I ever wanted warmth and a fresh start, the Philippines was the place. English-speaking, Catholic, even he knew I wasn't religious. But he'd say it might feel familiar, less alien than Thailand or Vietnam. After Siobhan died, those conversations kept coming back. I started researching, spent 3 months watching YouTube videos, expat channels, cost of living breakdowns, visa requirements. I'm methodical, always have been. You don't survive 30 years on the high-voltage lines without checking everything twice. Thailand kept coming up in my searches, but it felt too seedy from what I saw, too focused on a certain kind of tourism I wanted no part of. Vietnam looked interesting, but the language barrier seemed rough. The Philippines kept ticking boxes. English-speaking, affordable, warm. Catholic country, which meant some cultural overlap with Ireland, or so I thought. I wasn't looking for love. I want to be clear about that. I'd had love. 28 years of it. That part of my life was done. I just wanted somewhere I could breathe again. Somewhere the sun shone and the silence didn't echo quite so loud. Somewhere I could wake up and not immediately think about the empty space in the bed next to me. So I sold most of my things, put some boxes in storage at Claire's place in Dublin, and booked a one-way ticket to Manila. Claire thought I was mad, said I was running away. Maybe I was. But I couldn't run away fast enough. I landed in Manila on a September morning and the heat hit me like opening an oven door. 32 degrees, humidity that made the air feel solid. The airport was chaos, crowds everywhere. People shouting, taxi drivers trying to grab my bag. I'd arranged a condo rental online through a property agent who worked with expats. One-bedroom place in Makati for 18,000 pesos a month. Worked out to about P320, which seemed grand. The culture shock was immediate. The traffic made Cork look like a country lane. Jeepneys belching diesel, motorcycles weaving through gaps that didn't exist. Everyone honking constantly, but somehow it all flowed. The poverty was visible in ways I hadn't prepared for. Families living under bridges, kids selling sampaguita flowers at intersections. But then you'd turn a corner, and there'd be a gleaming shopping mall bigger than anything in Ireland, full of the same shops you'd see in London or Dublin. I fell into a routine. Morning walks before the heat got brutal. Cheap meals at the local carinderias. Little hole-in-the-wall places where you point at what you want, and they pile rice and ulam onto a plate for 100 pesos. Found an expat pub on Jupiter Street that did a decent Irish breakfast on weekends. Started meeting other foreigners. There, mostly British and German retirees, couple of Americans, one Norwegian lad who'd married a Filipina and seemed genuinely happy. The warnings started immediately. Everyone had a story, or knew someone who had a story. Don't trust the women. They're all after your money. Don't give them anything or you'll never stop giving. Don't fall for the sob stories about sick mothers and broken water pumps. Everyone's running a game. The Filipinas at the bar are professionals. The ones on the dating apps are professionals. The nice girl you meet at the mall is probably a professional. I listened, nodded. Thought to myself, I'm not stupid enough to fall for any of that. I'm 55 years old, been married nearly 3 decades, worked a job where carelessness gets you killed. I know how to spot danger. Famous last words, those. 2 months passed. I was settling into Manila life, finding my rhythm. The heat was still brutal, but I'd learned to move slower, stay in the shade, drink more water than seemed humanly possible. My condo was basic but comfortable air conditioning that actually worked, which felt like a miracle. I'd made a few mates at the pub, learned which carinderias did the best adobo, figured out the jeepney routes well enough to get around without relying on Grab all the time. But my back was absolutely destroyed. 30 years climbing transmission towers, working in all weather, carrying heavy equipment up poles, it catches up with you. My lower back had been giving me trouble for years. But in Manila, the combination of heat, humidity, and sleeping on a mattress that felt like concrete made it unbearable. Some mornings I could barely stand up straight. I mentioned it one Friday night at the pub. Henrik, this Belgian lad who'd been in Manila for 5 years, told me about a massage clinic in Poblacion, emphasized it was legitimate, therapeutic, deep tissue work, not one of those setups. He gave me the address, said to ask for Joy, that she was properly trained and would sort my back out. I booked an appointment for the following Tuesday. The clinic was tucked down a side street off Kalyan Avenue, above a 7-Eleven. Clean enough, professional looking. Air-conditioned, which was a blessing. The receptionist spoke decent English, took my payment 400 pesos for an hour, about 7. Cheap as chips compared to what you'd pay back home. Joy came out to greet me. 28 years old, maybe, petite, professional demeanor. Introduced herself, asked what areas needed work, took notes on a clipboard. Her English was good clear, with that distinctive Filipino accent but easy to understand. She led me to a treatment room, left me to change, came back and got to work. And Christ, she knew what she was doing. Found every knot in my lower back, worked them methodically. It hurt in that good way, the kind of pain that tells you it's actually fixing something. We chatted a bit during the session. She asked where I was from, how long I'd been in Manila, what brought me here. I kept it vague, said I was retired, wanted somewhere warm, seemed like a nice place to spend some time. She mentioned she was studying nursing part-time at Arellano University, worked at the clinic to pay her tuition. Her family was from Batangas. She supported her 2 younger brothers, hoped to finish her degree and work abroad as an OFW nurse, maybe Dubai or Saudi Arabia where the pay was better. It felt like normal conversation. No sob story, no immediate requests. Just 2 people talking while she worked on my wrecked back. I booked another appointment for the following week. Over the next 6 weeks, I saw Joy every Tuesday. My back genuinely improved. The constant ache eased. I could move better, sleep better. But I started looking forward to the appointments for more than just the therapeutic benefit. The conversations deepened. She'd ask about Ireland, about my work on the transmission lines, seemed genuinely interested in the technical details. How high were the towers? What voltage were the lines? Wasn't I terrified working up there? I'd ask about her studies, about nursing school in the Philippines. She'd talk about clinical rotations, the difficulty of studying while working, her dream of getting certified and working in a proper hospital abroad. She wanted to help her family, her mother. Maricel struggled to make ends meet. Her brothers Mark and Kenneth needed support for school. Joy carried that responsibility as the eldest, which seemed to weigh on her. Looking back now, I should have seen it then. The careful construction of the narrative. But at the time, it just felt real. She was different from the women the lads at the pub had warned me about. No immediate requests, no invented emergencies. Just a young woman working hard, studying, trying to build a future. Focused on her education, on getting out, on making something of herself. During our 5th session, she mentioned her birthday was coming up the following week. Didn't ask for anything, just mentioned it casually while working on my shoulders. I stopped at the nice Ruston supermarket on the way to my 6th appointment. Bought a small cake from their bakery chocolate, nothing fancy, maybe 300 pesos. Picked up some groceries, too good. Coffee, biscuits, tinned goods, things I knew were expensive on a student's budget. Another 500 pesos, showed up with it all as pasalubong. Joy's reaction when I gave it to her, that's what hooked me, if I'm being honest. She actually teared up. Said most customers treated her like furniture, like she wasn't even human, just hands that worked on their muscles. Said no one had ever acknowledged her birthday before. No one had ever brought her a gift. The emotion seemed completely genuine. She was embarrassed by it, tried to hide that she was crying, kept saying thank you in this quiet, overwhelmed way. I told her it was nothing. Just a small gesture. She worked hard, deserved to have her birthday acknowledged. After that session, walking back to my condo through the Makati heat, I felt something I hadn't felt since Siobhan died. Not quite happiness, but something close. Purpose, maybe. Connection. The sense that I wasn't just existing anymore, that I could still matter to someone, still make a difference in someone's life, even in a small way. The warnings from the pub felt distant. This wasn't the script everyone had described. Joy hadn't asked for money, hadn't invented emergencies, hadn't love-bombed me or tried to rush into anything romantic. She was just grateful, human, real. Maybe this place wasn't all scams and games. Maybe authentic connections were still possible, even for a 55-year-old widower who'd come here just trying to escape the silence. I should have known better. 30 years on the high-voltage lines taught me that the most dangerous current is the one you don't see coming, the one that looks properly insulated but isn't, the one you trust because everything seems fine right up until the moment it kills you. But I wanted to believe. That was the problem. After a year of emptiness, of just going through motions, I wanted to believe that something good could still happen. That kindness could be simple. That gratitude could be genuine. So I believed. And that's where it started. Not with a request, not with a scam that announced itself, just with a small cake and some groceries and a young woman crying because someone had acknowledged her birthday. That's how the circuit gets you, not with obvious danger. With something that looks like exactly what you need. A week after the birthday pasalubong, Joy invited me to meet her family in Batangas. Said her mother wanted to thank me properly for being kind to her daughter, that they'd love to have me for lunch on Sunday if I was free. The way she asked, casual, no pressure, said I could say no if it felt too soon, made it impossible to refuse. I took the bus down from Pasay on a Sunday morning. 2 hours in brutal heat, no air conditioning, squeezed between locals with shopping bags and live chickens. The bus stopped every 10 minutes to pick up more passengers until we were packed in like sardines. By the time we reached Lipa City, my shirt was soaked through with sweat. Joy met me at the terminal on a motorcycle taxi. We rode through narrow streets, past sari-sari stores and basketball courts, roosters tied to fence posts, laundry hanging everywhere. Her family's house was in a modest barangay, small concrete structure, maybe 40 square meters total, tin roof, bars on the windows. The kind of place that would cost nothing back home but represented everything here. The moment I walked in, the family descended. Her mother Maricel, maybe 50, warm smile, immediately apologizing for the heat and insisting I take the only electric fan. Joy's grandmother Lola, ancient, speaking only Tagalog, smiling constantly and patting my arm. 2 younger brothers, Mark, 19, shy but polite, and Kenneth, 16, curious about everything. They'd prepared a feast. I could tell immediately they'd spent money they didn't have. Lechon kawali, crispy pork belly pancit noodles, lumpia, mountains of rice, fresh mango. The table was overflowing. Maricel kept apologizing it wasn't enough, kept piling more food on my plate. This is Filipino hospitality, the real thing, where they'll go without themselves to make sure a guest eats well. We sat around the table, the fan barely moving the hot air, and they asked about Ireland. I showed them photos of Siobhan on my phone, thought it was important they knew I'd been married, that I wasn't here trolling for a young wife. Maricel crossed herself, said a prayer in Tagalog, touched my hand. Joy translated. Her mother was sorry for my loss, said Siobhan must have been a wonderful woman to have kept me so faithful. Mark asked about Irish football. Did I support Cork City? Had I ever been to a match at Turner's Cross? Kenneth wanted to know about electrical work, about the transmission towers, the voltage, the danger. Told him about the time I watched a lad nearly get killed when he didn't check a circuit properly. They listened like I was telling adventure stories. When I tried to pay Maricel for the groceries I'd brought another 1,000 pesos worth, about 0.18, she actually scolded Joy in rapid Tagalog. Joy looked embarrassed, translated that her mother said I was a guest, that accepting payment would be an insult. This wasn't the script. This was the opposite of what the lads at the pub had warned about. After lunch, Mark walked me around the barangay, showed me the basketball court where he played, the small chapel, the neighbors fighting cocks, kids everywhere, playing in the streets, calling out greetings. Everyone seemed to know Joy's family, and everyone was curious about the white foreigner. I felt like an exhibit at the zoo, but in a friendly way. Back at the house, Lola brought out old photos, family gatherings, Joy's graduation from secondary school, the boys as toddlers. There was a photo of Joy's father, died 10 years back from diabetes complications. Maricel still had his picture on a small altar in the corner, candles and rosary beads. She'd been supporting the family alone since then, working as a domestic helper for a wealthy family in Manila, coming home to Batangas once a month. I could see the weight on Joy. As the eldest, especially the eldest daughter, she carried the responsibility. This wasn't manipulation. This was just how it worked here. The OFW culture, millions of Filipinos working abroad, sending money home to support parents, siblings, extended family. A foreign boyfriend with a pension was just another version of that. I understood it intellectually, but I didn't yet understand what it would mean for me. The bus ride back to Manila, I felt good. Validated even. I'd met the family. They were genuine people. Struggling but proud, warm but not grasping. Joy hadn't asked me for anything. Her mother had refused payment. This wasn't a setup. This was just a young woman trying to help her family while building her own future, and maybe I could be part of that without it being transactional. Over the next month, the small financial gestures began. Not requests, offers from me. Joy mentioned needing textbooks for her nursing program. 5,000 pesos, about 90. She showed me the list, the prices, said she was saving up, but it would take a few months. I offered to buy them. She refused initially, said she couldn't accept, it was too much. I insisted, told her it was nothing, I had my pension, I wanted to help. She teared up again, that same genuine emotion, said she'd pay me back once she graduated. When I visited Batangas the next time, I brought groceries, proper ones from the nice supermarket, rice, cooking oil, tinned goods, coffee, biscuits, fresh vegetables. 3,000 pesos, maybe 55. Maricel tried to refuse, but I left them anyway, said it was payment for the lechon kawali, that I owed them for the meal. She laughed, accepted, hugged me. Joy mentioned struggling with her tuition payment. 8,000 pesos due, about Psi 145, and she was short. Said she might have to defer the semester, work more hours to save up. I saw the genuine distress on her face. This was her education, her future, her ticket out. I sent the money through GCash my first time using the system. Joy walked me through it. She cried again, promised to pay it back, said I was an angel. I did the math. Over about 6 weeks, I'd sent roughly 800. For a man with 30,000 in savings and a steady pension, it was nothing. Pocket money. And these were genuine needs. Textbooks, food, tuition, not requests for designer bags or iPhones. Just the basics for a family living hand to mouth. But here's the thing that made me feel validated. That made me think I'd somehow beaten the system. Joy introduced me to her classmates. We met at a coffee shop near Arellano University. 3 other nursing students, all around Joy's age, all in their uniforms. They talked about clinical rotations at Manila hospitals, about difficult instructors, about studying for the nursing board exam. The conversation was technical, detailed, specific. They weren't actors. They knew their stuff. Joy showed me her student ID, her class schedule, her grades. Everything checked out. She was actually enrolled, actually studying, actually on track to graduate in 6 months. I felt like a genius, like I'd found the one genuine person in a sea of scammers. I wasn't one of those stupid foreigners handing money to bar girls and believing sob stories about sick water buffaloes. I was helping a real student achieve real goals. My money was going to textbooks and tuition, not to some boyfriend's motorcycle or gambling debts. The satisfaction of feeling useful again, that's what hooked me deeper than any romance could have. After a year of purposelessness, of being irrelevant, I mattered. I was helping someone build a future. Joy would graduate, become a nurse, work abroad, support her family properly. And maybe I played a small part in making that happen. I thought about Siobhan, about how she'd always supported people quietly, how she'd helped neighbors without making a fuss, slip money to Claire's friends who were struggling, donate to charity without wanting recognition. I told myself this was just carrying on that legacy, being generous, being kind, using my resources to help someone who deserved it. Looking back, I can see exactly where I went wrong. I confused gratitude with genuine connection. I mistook calculated vulnerability for authentic emotion. I thought verification, the student ID, the classmates, the family, meant safety. But verification only proves what's being shown to you. It doesn't prove what's hidden. I'd checked the circuit the way I thought I was supposed to, but I'd only checked the parts I could see. I'd trusted the insulation without testing it. And in electrical work, that's how you die. But at that moment, sitting in that coffee shop with Joy and her nursing classmates, watching them complain about their clinical rotations and quiz each other on medical terminology, I felt certain I'd found something real, something good, something worth investing in. I was wrong, but I wouldn't figure that out for another 9 months. Month 5, the requests started scaling up, not suddenly, not aggressively, just a gradual increase that felt natural at the time. Joy and I were having dinner at a small restaurant in Poblacion, nothing fancy, just grilled fish and rice, maybe 600 pesos for both of us. She was quiet that night, distracted. I asked what was wrong. She hesitated, said it was nothing, family stuff. She didn't want to burden me with it. I pushed gently. That's what you do when you care about someone, right? You push gently. Turned out her younger brother Mark had been accepted to Lyceum University for business administration. Good school, decent program, real opportunity for a kid from a provincial family. But the enrollment fees were 35,000 pesos, about 625. Maricel didn't have it. Joy had been saving, but she was still short. Mark would probably have to defer a year, maybe 2, work and save up. Joy was trying not to cry. Said she felt like she was failing her family. She was the eldest, supposed to be helping, but she couldn't even keep her brother in school. I offered immediately. Told her I'd cover it. It wasn't even a question. She refused. Said it was too much, she couldn't accept, it wasn't right. But I could see the war happening behind her eyes. Pride versus responsibility, her own dignity versus her family's future. I insisted. Told her Mark was a smart kid, deserved the opportunity. Told her I had the money sitting in the bank doing nothing, that helping a young person get educated was a better use for it than collecting dust in some cork bank account. Told her it wasn't a loan, it was a gift, no strings attached. She cried. Proper crying, not the delicate tears from before. Said I was saving Mark's future. Said she'd pay me back once she graduated, once she was working as a nurse in Dubai making proper money. I told her not to worry about it. I sent the money the next day through Gcash. Mark sent me a voice message, shy, embarrassed, thanking me in his careful English, promising to study hard, to make the most of the opportunity. That felt good. That felt real. Then, month 6, the request came about Lola cataracts. The old woman could barely see. She'd been managing for years, getting by, but it had gotten bad enough she couldn't walk safely anymore. Kept stumbling, nearly fell into a drainage ditch. The surgery was 45,000 pesos, about 800. PhilHealth wouldn't cover it, something about her age, about pre-existing conditions, bureaucratic nonsense I didn't fully understand. Joy didn't ask. Maricel called me directly, apologetic, embarrassed. Said she wouldn't normally ask, but Lola was suffering. Said they'd find a way to manage if I couldn't help, maybe borrow from relatives, maybe wait until Joy graduated. I thought about my own mother. She died 5 years back from pneumonia, but before that she'd had her own health issues. If she'd needed surgery and some foreigner with money could have helped, I'd have wanted them to. It's just human decency, isn't it? I sent the money. 45,000 pesos, and 800 gone just like that. Joy sent me a series of voice messages, her voice breaking. Said I was an angel sent by God. Said her family was blessed. Said Lola cried when they told her she'd be able to see her great-grandchildren clearly again. 2 weeks later, I got photos of Lola after the surgery. Bandages off, smiling, holding my hand in a photo they'd taken when I visited Batangas. The gratitude felt overwhelming. Genuine. How could that be fake? I did the mental accounting. Textbooks, tuition, Mark's enrollment, Lola's surgery. I'd sent roughly 2,200 over 6 months. I had 130,000 in savings. My pension was 1,400 a month. The math was sustainable. These were genuine emergencies, one-time costs. Joy would graduate soon. She was telling me June now, just a few months away. She'd get her nursing certification, work in the Philippines for a year to get experience, then apply for jobs in the Middle East. She'd be making 4 or 5 times what she made now, self-sufficient. Maybe she'd even pay me back, though I didn't care about that. Our relationship was evolving too. We had dinner every Saturday now. Sometimes she'd stay over at my condo, slept on the couch, always proper, always maintaining boundaries. She was Catholic, took it seriously, said she was saving herself for marriage. I respected that. Wasn't pushing for anything physical anyway. I just liked the company. Liked not being alone. The lads at the pub were starting to ask questions. Henrik, the Belgian, pulled me aside one Friday, asked how much I'd sent her. When I told him the rough figure, he whistled, said I needed to be careful. Said they all start like this: legitimate expenses, genuine needs, gradual escalation. Said in 6 months I'd have sent 50,000 euros and be wondering how it happened. I got defensive. Told him Joy was different. Told him about meeting the family, about the verification, the student ID, the classmates, the actual enrollment. Told him about the gratitude, the promises to pay me back. Henrik just shook his head. Said he'd heard it all before. Said they were all different until they weren't. I thought he was just cynical, bitter. One too many bad experiences making him see scams everywhere. Then, month 7, Joy's work hours at the massage clinic got cut. COVID recovery was still hitting small businesses. The clinic was reducing staff hours, trying to stay afloat. Joy went from 5 shifts a week to 2, sometimes 1. Her income dropped by more than half. She was struggling with rent for her bed space. A tiny room she shared with another girl near the clinic, 6,500 pesos a month, about 11.15. With reduced hours, she couldn't make it. She mentioned maybe moving back to Batangas, commuting to Manila for university, but that would add 3 hours of travel each way. She'd never manage it with her class schedule. I started covering her rent, sent the money monthly through GCash. Then I added another 15,000 pesos for living expenses, food, transport, phone credit. 21,500 pesos total, about Thai 385 a month. Joy insisted it was temporary. Just until she graduated in June. Just until she passed her nursing boards and got a job. She'd pay back every peso. She kept a careful record in a notebook, showed me the running total, said she wanted everything documented so there'd be no confusion later. That notebook made me feel secure. See? She was accounting for it. Planning to repay. This wasn't a scam. This was just helping someone through a rough patch. I told myself the same thing I've been telling myself for months. I've got the money. She's got genuine needs. This is temporary. She'll be a nurse soon. But there was a moment, just a flicker, when the first real red flag appeared. We were having coffee at Starbucks in Greenbelt. Joy mentioned another client from the massage clinic, a wealthy Chinese Filipino businessman, said he'd offered to sponsor her nursing board review course, 15,000 pesos for the intensive prep program. Said she'd refused because it wouldn't be right, because she was with me now, because she wanted to respect what we had. She said it casually, like it was just information, like she was demonstrating her loyalty. But a small voice in the back of my head asked, why mention it at all? If you're genuinely loyal, if you're genuinely committed, why bring up that another man offered you money? Why plant that seed of competition, that suggestion that you had other options? I ignored the voice, told myself she was being honest, being transparent, told myself it proved she was choosing me, choosing our relationship over money. I felt validated. See, she's loyal. She refused him because of me. Looking back, I can see it was the first test, the first subtle manipulation, planting the idea that other men wanted to support her, that she was desirable, that she had options, making me feel like I needed to compete, making me feel grateful that she'd chosen me. But I didn't see it then. I was too invested, too far in, too desperate to believe that what we had was real. The money kept flowing, month 7, month 8. Rent, living expenses, occasional extras. 8,000 pesos for additional nursing requirements, supplies for clinical rotations. 6,000 for credential processing fees. It all sounded legitimate. It all had documentation, receipts, forms, explanations. I'd sent another 2,000 over those 3 months. Added to the previous total, I was in for about 4,200 now. Still sustainable, still manageable, still temporary. Joy talked about graduation constantly. June. Just a few more months. Then board exam prep. Then the exam itself. Then applying for jobs. Then Dubai, or Saudi, or Singapore. Then she'd be making real money. Then she could support her family properly. Then she wouldn't need my help anymore. I believed every word. We'd have Saturday dinners at the same restaurant in Poblacion. Sometimes she'd cook at my condo's simple Filipino food, adobo or sinigang, always apologizing it wasn't fancy enough. I'd tell her it was perfect. She'd smile, kiss my cheek, tell me I was the kindest man she'd ever met. The physical affection was minimal but present. Hand-holding. Occasional kisses on the cheek. Sitting close on the couch while we watched Netflix, she'd say she was taking it slow, that she wanted to be sure, that her faith was important to her. I respected that. I'd been married 28 years to one woman. I understood commitment. I understood patience. I called Claire in Dublin, told her about Joy, told her I'd met someone, that I was happy again, that maybe there was still good in the world. Claire was cautious, asked careful questions. How long had I known her? Had I sent her money? How much? I lied about the amount, said maybe 1,000 euros, just helping with school expenses. Claire said that seemed like a lot for someone I'd known a few months. I got defensive, told her Joy was different, told her not to judge the Philippines by Western standards, that family obligation worked differently here, that supporting your partner's education was normal. Claire backed off. Said she was happy I was happy, said to be careful, said she loved me. I convinced myself I was being careful. I had verification. I had evidence. I'd met the family. I'd seen the student ID. I'd talked to the classmates. Everything checked out. What I didn't understand yet was that verification only proves what you're shown. It doesn't prove what's hidden. And I hadn't tested the parts of the circuit I couldn't see. The current was building. I just didn't know it yet. By month 9, I was fully entangled. The monthly support had become routine. 21,500 pesos automatically sent through GCash on the first of each month. Rent plus living expenses. I'd set it up like a direct debit, didn't even think about it anymore. Just part of my monthly budget, like my condo rent or electric bill. But the irregular requests kept coming. 8,000 pesos for additional nursing requirements. New scrubs, clinical supplies, some sort of clearance form. 6,000 for credential processing fees from the university. Each one came with documentation. Joy would send me photos of the receipts, the forms, the official letterhead. Everything looked legitimate. The graduation date started shifting. At first it was supposed to be June. Then in April, Joy told me there were problems with her clinical hours. She needed another semester to complete the required rotations. Graduation was pushed to August. I told myself it made sense. Philippine universities were notorious for bureaucratic delays. Everyone dealt with this. The Norwegian lad at the pub, his wife had dealt with similar issues getting her teaching credentials. This was just how things worked here. Then in June, Joy said there were issues with clearance from the university. She owed some administrative fees from previous semesters that needed settling before they'd process her graduation. Another 8,000 pesos. Then problems with her transcript of records, 6,000 to expedite processing. Graduation was now pushed to October, maybe November. Each delay came with new costs. Each cost came with explanations that sounded reasonable. I sent the money. By month 10, I'd adjusted my mental timeline. Fine, she'd graduate later than expected. The important thing was she'd still graduate, still get certified, still become a nurse. The timeline didn't matter as long as the destination was the same. Then Maricel called about the roof. Typhoon season was coming. The house in Batangas had a tin roof that was 20 years old, rusted through in places, leaking badly. During the last big storm, water had poured into the house, ruined some of their belongings, nearly electrocuted Kenneth when water dripped onto an extension cord. The repair would cost 85,000 pesos, about mine 7,500. Maricel was apologetic, embarrassed, said she wouldn't normally ask, but the roof was genuinely dangerous. Sent me photos, rust holes, sagging sections, water stains on the ceiling inside. Said they'd been trying to save up, but between Joy's school expenses and daily living costs, there was never enough left over. I thought about the risk. Typhoons in the Philippines are serious business. People die every year from collapsing structures, flooding, electrocution. This wasn't a luxury request. This was safety. This was a family I cared about now, living in a house that could literally kill them during the next big storm. I sent the money. 85,000 pesos. 1,500 gone in a single transaction. They sent me photos of the repair work. New tin sheets being installed, workers on the roof, the finished product. Maricel sent a voice message, crying, thanking God for sending me into their lives. Joy said I'd saved the family, that they'd be safe now, that she'd never forget this. Then, month 11, Maricel's diabetes got worse. Her medication costs had been manageable on PhilHealth, but the generic drugs weren't controlling her blood sugar anymore. The doctor prescribed a newer medication, better control, fewer side effects. But PhilHealth wouldn't cover it. Too expensive. Not on the essential medicines list. The cost was 12,000 pesos monthly, about 215. Maricel was apologetic again, said she'd try to manage on the old medication, but the doctor had warned her blood sugar was dangerously high, she was at risk for complications, kidney damage, vision problems, amputation even. But she understood if it was too much to ask. What was I supposed to do? Let the woman go blind or lose a leg because I didn't want to spend 215 a month. I'd spent more than that on pints at the pub back in Cork. I started sending the medication money on top of everything else. Now I was in for roughly 650 a month in regular support. Plus, I'd sent about 6,500 total over the year in one-time costs. The numbers were adding up faster than I'd expected, but they were still manageable. I had the money, they had genuine needs. But things were changing with Joy. Our Saturday dinners started getting cancelled. First, it was a family emergency and Batanga's Lola was sick. Joy needed to go home for the weekend. Then she picked up a double shift at the clinic, couldn't get out of it, needed the money. Then another family emergency. Then more work. Then Lola again. When we did meet, Joy seemed distracted, constantly checking her phone. She'd say it was her study group, they were coordinating for exams, lots of messages. But she'd angle the screen away when typing, never let me see what she was writing. The physical affection cooled. Less hand-holding. Fewer kisses on the cheek. When she stayed over at my condo, she'd go straight to the couch, say she was exhausted, fall asleep almost immediately. The warmth I'd felt in the early months, that easy comfort, that growing intimacy, it was draining away. I told myself she was stressed. Finals were coming up. She was working reduced hours but still trying to cover her own expenses where she could. She was worried about her family. The delayed graduation was weighing on her. This was just a rough patch. It would pass once she graduated. But the voice in my head was getting louder, the one I'd been ignoring for months. Then came the fourth red flag, the big one. I decided to surprise Joy with lunch one Tuesday. She'd mentioned she was working a double shift at the clinic, morning and afternoon sessions, wouldn't finish until 6. I thought I'd show up around 1 with food from her favorite Vietnamese place. Brighten her day, remind her she wasn't going through this stress alone. I walked into the clinic with the takeaway bag. The receptionist looked up, smiled, recognized me. I'd been coming here for months. I asked if Joy was free for a quick lunch break. The receptionist's smile faltered. She looked confused. Joy? She doesn't work here anymore, sir. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? She's here today. Double shift. The receptionist shook her head. Joy left maybe 6 months ago. Haven't seen her since. 6 months. 6 months of Joy telling me she was working reduced hours. 6 months of excuses about the clinic cutting shifts. 6 months of me believing her income had dropped, believing she needed my help to cover her rent and expenses. 6 months of lies. I stood there holding the Vietnamese food, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath me. The receptionist was still talking, explaining something about staff turnover, offering to check if there was confusion about names, but I couldn't hear her anymore. Just a ringing in my ears, like standing too close to a transformer. I walked out, sat on a bench outside, called Joy. She didn't answer. Sent me to voicemail. I sent a message. The clinic says you haven't worked there in 6 months. What's going on? 3 hours later, she responded. Long message. Rushed. Defensive. Said there was confusion with the schedule. She was working fewer hours, not on the regular rotation anymore. The receptionist was new. Didn't know about the part-time massage therapists who came in irregular shifts. Joy had been there that morning, actually left just before I arrived. What bad timing. The explanation was too detailed, too eager, too defensive. For the first time in a year, I let myself really look at what was happening. Not through the lens of wanting to believe, not through the filter of loneliness and hope. Just cold, methodical assessment. The way I'd assess a faulty circuit. I'd been an electrician for 30 years. When there's a fault in the system, you don't ignore it. You don't rationalize it away. You trace it. Methodically, systematically. Without emotion. Something in this circuit wasn't right. I started going through our messages. Our Gcash transaction history. Joy's Facebook timeline. Cross-referencing dates, looking for inconsistencies. The graduation delays. The shifting explanations. The constant new expenses. The canceled dinners. The cooling affection. The phone angled away. The clinic receptionist saying she hadn't worked there in 6 months. I thought about what Henrik had said at the pub. They all start like this. Legitimate expenses, genuine needs, gradual escalation. Then one day you've sent 50,000 euros and you're wondering how it happened. I wasn't at 50,000. I was at 6,500 in total costs, plus 6,500 in total if I counted everything since I'd met her, but the trajectory was there. The pattern was visible if I was willing to see it. I told myself I was being paranoid, that grief and loneliness were making me suspicious of something genuine, that I should trust Joy, trust the verification I'd done, trust the year we'd built together. But 30 years on the high-voltage lines had taught me something essential. When you suspect a fault, you test it. You don't assume. You don't hope. You verify. Because the moment you trust a connection, just because you want it to be safe, that's the moment it kills you. I pulled out my phone and opened Facebook, started scrolling through Joy's photos, looking at dates, looking at locations, looking for anything that didn't match what she'd told me. And there it was. Month 5. The same month I'd sent money for Mark's college enrollment fees. Joy had posted photos from Boracay, white sand beaches, crystal clear water, cocktails at sunset. 3 days at an expensive resort with her girlfriends. The hotel tag showed rates at 15,000 pesos a night. I'd sent her 35,000 pesos for Mark's college fees that month. The same money, the same timing. My hands were shaking. I kept scrolling. I needed to test this circuit properly. I needed to trace the fault all the way to its source. And I was starting to suspect what I'd find. I sat in my condo that night, laptop open, methodically going through everything the way I'd troubleshoot a faulty transformer. Systematically. Without emotion. Following the evidence wherever it led. First, I needed to verify the big claims, the ones I'd taken on faith. I pulled up my cousin Liam's Facebook profile. He lived in Dublin, worked in tech, decent-looking lad in his mid-30s. I downloaded a few of his photos, ones where he looked successful, professional. Then I created a dummy Facebook account. Added a few generic posts about moving to Manila, looking for recommendations, excited about the expat life. Then I messaged Joy. "Hi, I'm moving to Manila next month and a mate recommended you for massage therapy. Heard you're great with helping new expats settle in. Looking for regular sessions and maybe someone to show me around the city? Cheers, Liam." I hit send at 9 p.m. Expected I'd wait until morning for a response. Joy responded within an hour. "Hi, Liam. I can definitely help you settle in Fi. I know all the best places in Manila, both for relaxation and fun. I'm very good with my hands, and I specialize in helping foreigners adjust to life here. When do you arrive?" The tone was different. Flirty, confident. None of the stress and distance she'd been showing me for months. I responded as Liam. "Arriving mid-November. Would love to book some sessions in advance and maybe grab dinner to discuss what you'd recommend for a newcomer. What's your rate?" She sent her Gcash details within minutes. Unprompted. Along with her rates, 500 per session, discounts for advance booking. No mention of a boyfriend. No mention of being in a relationship. No mention of nursing school or studying for finals or any of the stress she'd been telling me about. I pushed further. "Sounds perfect. How about dinner next Saturday to discuss?" "I'll be in Manila for a quick visit to sort out housing. There's a nice restaurant in Poblacion I've been meaning to try." I named the restaurant, the same one where Joy and I had our first meal outside the clinic a year ago. "I'd love that. Saturday works great. What time?" My heart was hammering now. I switched accounts, messaged as myself. "Hey, still on for dinner Saturday? Miss you. Haven't seen you in weeks." Joy responded to me 30 minutes later. "Yes, So sorry, I've been so busy with school and family stuff. Can we do 6 p.m. at our usual place? I went back to the Liam account. How about 8:30 p.m.? Gives me time to sort some things earlier in the day. Joy confirmed. Perfect. See you then. She'd just confirmed 2 dinner dates at the same restaurant on the same night, 2 hours apart. Running a rotation schedule, I sat back, stared at the screen. The ringing in my ears was back. But I needed more. I needed to verify everything. I went back to her Facebook timeline. Started cross-referencing every major request against her posts and photos. Month 5. Mark's college enrollment fees, $35,000. Same month, Joy posted photos from Boracay, tagged at a resort that charged $15,000 per night. 3 nights. With girlfriends. Shopping bags in some photos. Branded stuff. Expensive. Month 6, Lola's cataract surgery, $45,000. I scrolled back through Joy's old posts. Found what I was looking for in 2022. A sympathy post. Rest in peace, Lola. You raised us with so much love. We'll miss you forever. Posted March 2022. 2 years ago, I'd sent $45,000 for cataract surgery on a dead woman. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I kept going. Month 10, the roof repair, $85,000. I couldn't verify if that was real or not. The photos she'd sent could have been from anywhere. But the month after I sent that money, Joy posted photos from a new iPhone 14 Pro, tagged it as a blessing, and finally upgraded. I pulled out my phone, called Arellano University, got transferred to the registrar's office. Good afternoon. I'm trying to verify student enrollment for a family member. Her name is Joy Mercado. Should be in the nursing program. The woman on the phone asked for more details. Date of birth, student number. I didn't have the student number, but I gave her what I had. She put me on hold. 5 minutes of Filipino elevator music. Sir, I've checked our records. We don't have any student by that name currently enrolled in our nursing program. Let me check if she's a recent graduate. Another hold. No, sir. No record of Joy Mercado in our nursing program, current or former students. My voice came out steady somehow. Is it possible she's enrolled under a different program? I've checked all programs, sir. No match for that name. I thanked her, hung up. The student ID she'd shown me, the classmates she'd introduced me to, the schedule, the grades, all of it. I went to Google, searched fake student ID Philippines, found dozens of vendors in Recto selling templates for $500. Perfect replicas of university IDs from every school in Manila. Just send them your photo and the details you want printed. The classmates could have been anyone. Real nursing students, maybe, recruited to have coffee with a foreigner for $2,000 each. Or friends of Joy's playing a role. Everything I'd verified it had all been carefully staged. But I needed the final proof. Visual confirmation. Tuesday morning, I took a grab to Poblacion. Positioned myself at a coffee shop across from the massage clinic with a clear view of the entrance. Joy had told me yesterday she was working a double shift today. Morning session starting at 8, wouldn't finish until 6 p.m. I waited. 8 a.m. came and went. No Joy. 9 a.m. 10. 11. Lunchtime. Still no Joy. At 2 p.m., a black Toyota pulled up. Older model, but well-maintained. The driver got out first. Western man, maybe 65, white beard, expensive polo shirt. European, by the look of him. German or Dutch, I'd guess. Then Joy got out of the passenger side. She took his hand. Not tentatively, not awkwardly, comfortably, naturally. The way she used to hold mine 6 months ago. They walked toward Greenbelt Mall, still holding hands. She leaned into him while they walked, laughed at something he said. I followed at a distance, watched them go into a restaurant on the second floor, sat at a window table, ordered food. The same casual intimacy she'd shown me. The same gestures. The same warm smile. He was probably getting the same script I'd gotten. The nursing school story. The family in Batangas, the sick mother. The dreams of working in Dubai. The promises that she'd pay everything back once she graduated. I walked to a Starbucks, sat down, pulled out my phone, did the final math, did 5,000 for nursing books that probably never existed, at 8,000 for tuition at a school she never attended, 35,000 for Mark's college enrollment spent on a Boracay holiday, 45,000 for surgery on a dead woman, 45,000 for a roof that might be fine, 14,000 monthly for medication for Maricel's diabetes, if she even had diabetes, monthly rent support, living expenses, countless small extras, 6,500 in one-time costs, plus roughly 605 monthly for the past 4 months. Another 800 on dinners, gifts, transport, about 10,000 total. Maybe more if I counted everything. None of it had gone where she said. Maybe some had. Maybe the family was real. Maybe they knew what she was doing. Maybe they were complicit. Or maybe the whole thing was fabricated. The house in Batangas could have been borrowed for the day. Maricel and the boys could have been actors, or distant relatives playing along for a cut. I'd never know. Not for certain. But I knew enough. I sat there in Starbucks, air conditioning blasting, watching Manila traffic creep past outside, and felt the full weight of it hit me. I'd been played. Completely. Methodically. Professionally. The grief wasn't even about the money. Not 10,000 was manageable. I still had most of my savings, no property in her name, no marriage, no visa sponsorship. I could walk away clean, financially, if not emotionally. The grief was about having believed again. Having opened up again. Having told myself that maybe, just maybe, there was still good in the world, still authentic connection possible, still something worth building. I'd told Claire about Joy, told her I was happy again, told her I'd found someone genuine. That conversation was going to hurt worse than any financial loss. I'd spent a year believing I mattered to someone, that my money was helping build a future, that Joy's gratitude was real, that her family's warmth was authentic. All of it, every smile, every tear, every promise, had been performance art. Calibrated, rehearsed, delivered with just enough authenticity to keep me invested. And I'd fallen for it. Me, 30 years of checking circuits, spotting danger, never trusting a connection without testing it. I'd ignored every safety protocol I'd spent a lifetime building. Because I was lonely, because I wanted to believe, because after Siobhan died, the silence had been unbearable, and Joy had filled it with something that felt like warmth. I pulled out my phone, opened Facebook Messenger, started typing. This was going to hurt. But at least I'd caught it. At least I'd tested the circuit before it killed me. At least I hadn't bought her a house. I opened Messenger. Started typing to Joy. Deleted it. Started again. This needed to be done properly. Like documenting a faulty transformer, methodical, comprehensive, emotionless. I took screenshots of everything. The dummy Facebook profile. The messages from Liam. Joy's responses flirty, eager, no mention of a boyfriend. The double-booked dinner reservation at the same restaurant, 2 hours apart. Her Boracay photos from the month I'd sent Mark's college fees. The sympathy post about Lola from 2022. The Arellano University confirmation that no Joy Mercado was enrolled. Then I wrote the message. Joy, I need you to know that I know. I created a test profile and messaged you as another Irish expat. You responded within an hour, sent your Gcash details, agreed to dinner this Saturday at 8:03 p.m. I asked you as myself about Saturday dinner. You confirmed 6 p.m., same restaurant. You're running a rotation. I called Arellano University. You're not enrolled, never were. I found the sympathy post about Lola from March 2022. I sent C800 for cataract surgery on a woman who died 2 years ago. The month I sent money for Mark's college enrollment, you posted photos from Boracay. 3 days at a resort that costs $15,000 a night. The massage clinic says you left 6 months ago, not reduced hours. Left. I'm attaching screenshots of everything. I don't need the money back. I'm not going to make trouble. I just want one thing, the truth. Just admit it. That's all I'm asking. I attached all the screenshots, hit send. Then I sat there in Starbucks, hands shaking, waiting. She saw the message immediately. The check marks turned blue. 10 minutes passed, 20, 30. Then her response came through. Short, cold. You were getting something too, don't pretend you weren't. I gave you companionship. You felt needed. You got what you paid for. That was it. No denial, no excuses, no apology. Just a cold assessment of the transaction we'd both participated in. Before I could respond, she blocked me. Facebook, Messenger, Viber, Line. Every platform we'd communicated on, gone. Just like that. The circuit severed completely. I sat there for another hour, ordered another coffee I didn't drink, watched it go cold. Eventually, I walked back to my condo, sat on the couch where Joy used to sleep, claiming she was too tired to talk, too stressed about school. The same couch where she'd shown me her fake student ID, her fabricated schedule, her careful notebook, tracking money she'd promised to repay. I did the final accounting properly. 6,500 in direct transfers. Maybe another 800 in dinners, gifts, transport to Batangas. Call it 7,300 total. Not catastrophic, not life-ruining. I still had most of my savings, still had my pension, still had my condo. But I'd lost 13 months. 13 months believing I mattered to someone again. 13 months thinking my money was helping build a future, helping a genuine person escape poverty through education. 13 months feeling useful, needed, like I had purpose beyond just existing in the Manila heat. All of it had been theater. Carefully constructed, professionally delivered, every tear calculated, every promise calibrated to keep me invested without pushing too hard. Every delay reasonable enough to accept. I thought about calling Claire, telling her, hearing her try to hide the "I told you so" in her voice. That might hurt worse than losing the money. I told her I was happy again, told her I'd found something real, told her Joy was different from the stories you hear about the Philippines. Famous last words. Those. But here's the thing. And I force myself to see this part too. 1,500 caught it. My electrician's instinct, buried under a year of loneliness and hope, had finally kicked in. I'd tested the circuit, traced the fault, verified what I suspected instead of just hoping I was wrong. I'd heard stories in the expat pubs about lads who hadn't caught it in time. Lads who'd bought houses in their girlfriends' names, 3 million gone, about 50,000 to 70,000. Lads who'd married women who turned out to be already married, trapped in annulment nightmares that cost 50,000 and took 3 years. Lads who'd brought entire families to Ireland on sponsorship, found out the whole thing was fabricated, couldn't undo the legal mess. I'd caught it at 7,300. No property in her name. No marriage, no visa, sponsorship, no legal entanglements. Clean exit, financially at least. The money stung. The betrayal hurt worse. But I'd survived. That's 3 months ago now. I'm still in Manila, still in the same Makati condo, still having my Irish breakfast at the same pub on Fridays. Henrik doesn't say I told you so, just buys me a pint, nods, tells me I got out cheap compared to some. He's right. I don't date anymore. Don't get involved. Keep my friendships light, my financial boundaries firm. When new expats arrive and ask about relationships here, I share my story. Not to scare them off, just to warn them. Test everything. Verify everything. Trust your instruments. Because here's what 30 years on the high-voltage lines taught me, and what the Philippines reinforced. The first rule of electrical work is never assume a circuit is dead just because someone tells you it is. You test it. You verify. You don't trust the connection just because it looks safe or feels right. The moment you stop checking your work, the moment you let loneliness override your safety protocols, that's when the current hits you. In the Philippines, like on the transmission lines back home, the current runs different. Different voltage, different grounding, different risks. If you're not paying attention, you'll never see the shock coming. I don't regret coming here. I like the weather. The actual cost of living is grand. The crake at the expat pub is decent. I've made real friends, Henrik, a couple of German lads, an Australian bloke who runs a small business here. I regret thinking my instincts would protect me when my heart was making the decisions. I regret confusing gratitude with genuine connection. I regret believing verification of what I could see meant safety from what I couldn't. But I caught it. That's what matters. I tested the circuit before it killed me. And if you're watching this, thinking about coming here, thinking about sending money, thinking your situation is different, just remember, they're all different. Until they're not. Trust your instruments. Verify every connection. And never ever let loneliness override your safety protocols. Because paradise always has a price. You just need to decide if you can afford it. That's my story. That's my 7,300 education, expensive, but not life-destroying. I'm still here, still breathing, still learning. And the silence? It doesn't echo quite so loud anymore. Not because I filled it with someone else. Because I learned to be okay with it again. That's worth something. Maybe that's worth everything. Thanks for listening to an old electrician talk about the day he forgot to check his work. Thanks for listening. And that brings us back to where we started. Calm caught the scam, but only after he'd already fallen for it. Only after loneliness had short-circuited every safety protocol he'd built over a lifetime of dangerous work. His story isn't unique. Every week in Manila, in Cebu, in Davao, similar scenes play out. Western men, lonely, grieving, seeking connection, meeting Filipinas who seem different, who seem genuine, who seem like the exception to every warning they've heard. And here's the complexity that Combe himself acknowledges. Not all of these relationships are scams. Plenty of expats build genuine, lasting partnerships here. Marriages that work, families that thrive. Love that's real even when it includes financial support. The Philippines has a genuine culture of family obligation. What Combe experienced might have been calculated exploitation, or it might have been real cultural expectations that he simply couldn't sustain, or somewhere in between. The hard part, the part that catches so many people, is telling the difference. Combe's lesson isn't to avoid Filipino women or Filipino relationships. It's about maintaining your safety protocols even when you desperately want to believe. It's about testing the circuit even when everything looks properly earthed. It's about not letting grief and loneliness override the instincts that kept you alive for 30 years. It's about remembering that verification only proves what you're shown, not what's hidden. And it's about catching it before you lose everything, before the house in her name, before the marriage that can't be undone, before the legal entanglements that trap you here. Colm paid $7,300 for his education. Expensive, but he graduated with most of his savings intact. Some men pay 10 times that. Some lose everything. If you're planning to come here, to send money, to build something with someone you've met online or in person, just remember what Colm learned. The current here runs different than back home. Different voltage, different grounding, different risks. Test everything. Verify everything. Trust your instruments. And never let loneliness override your safety protocols. Stay safe out there, verify every connection, and remember paradise always has a price. You just need to decide if you can afford it. This is Inside the Philippines. Thanks for watching.